This is Not Worth Living, a podcast that features creatives interviewing themselves with a preset list of questions. Unlike other podcasts that feel like conversation between friends, this one aims to feel like eavesdropping on a psychiatrist's visit. Today's episode features
Jon Nix. I'm a director, author, and photographer. What makes you tick? Mostly performance anxiety. If I'm going to do something, I would like to do it well. And so most of my anxiety around projects comes from just wanting to make sure that they're done to the best of my ability. And, that not that people are satisfied with them, because I don't generally think about an audience while I'm doing something. I'm usually just thinking about the work itself and if it feels like it's working to me. So that's usually where my concern is. Would you open an envelope with your death date? Probably. I'm very deadline motivated and schedule motivated, so I feel like it would help me prioritize what to do with my life. If it was next week, I better make sure that this week is the best of my life. Where if it's in 90 years, I can, adequately plan for that. Though I would say that it would leave me with a ton of anxiety, I'm sure, no matter what. How could it not, right? What was the first time you remember creating something intentionally? I've always been creative. I probably my first memory is of drawing little illustrations and cartoons and just crude whatever as a kid, around like probably 3 or 4. But as far as like something that I felt like was like substantial, the first like substantial thing I tried to do was write a novel as like a 10-year-old. And I just like didn't know what went into it, but I was like, I feel like I could do that, right? You just keep stringing it out. Like you just keep trying to develop it. And I was a voracious reader at a young age. So I got like, I want to say like 50 pages into it, like end of the rising action. And then I kind of just didn't know where to go because obviously, but I remember being proud of that for a long time as a kid, that it's like, well, I wrote that much. That's better than a lot of people can say, even though I'm sure it was not great. What keeps you motivated? The fact that we're all dying, the fact that like death is very much coming at you at 1,000,000 miles a minute every day, I think is my big motivator. I don't think a lot about legacy. I'm not really concerned about anyone interacting with anything that I've done, in say 50 years or something like that. Like, I don't know that there will be any people to interact with it then. But I just want to feel like I've spent my life in a way that is creative, and that I'm creating something with people that I care about, people that I respect. So I'm always looking for projects that are like that, where I know that I can, no matter how it does, I can hang my hat on it and be like, well, I did that. Who inspires you at the moment? A lot of people. The Callous Cowboys are a band that I've been very evangelical about over the past couple of years. I think that they're a really creative, fun, young band that's doing really wild shit. What's your latest project? My latest project is a short story collection called Ferals that I just put out through With an X, my publishing company. It's a collection of short stories that sort of add up to like a novel in parts. Like, they're all interconnected. They all take place in a Central Florida trailer park. And primarily the book is built around a lot of stuff that I either experienced or witnessed as a kid growing up in Florida. Because Florida's a weird place to grow up. It's really strange. It's really transient. Tourist towns, and especially dying tourist towns, are always interesting to me. So because they're not cities that have culture of their own, a lot of it is pandering culture. So it's just a lot of like, please, whatever, please like us. What do you want? Do you want a country cover of Baby One More Time? Do you want, what do you want? Please, we'll do anything for your money. And then there are people that actually live there outside of the tourists. And it's full of deadly animals, and which is weirdness and crazy people. It's just a really fucking weird place. So it just seemed like it was ripe for a story collection. So that's what I did. If money was no object, what would your dream project be? I mean, a lot of ideas. I mean, I have a ton of things that I would love to do. I feel like a John Zorn documentary would be really cool. I think that'd be a fun thing. I feel like embedding in Vegas with the sort of like hack auteur filmmaker Neil Breen would be a really fascinating documentary. Those would be things that I'd be really interested in. But at the same time, like, I'm used to operating on a pretty shoestring budget. I'd rather make sure that something exists than that, like, than that I spend all my time like trying to get money to do something that's maybe too ambitious or too out of my wheelhouse, or just like too big of an idea to accomplish, given any circumstances. So usually I am attracted to ideas that are smaller anyway. So I don't know how much money plays that much of a role in the projects that I end up selecting. Is there a quote or motto that you work by? Probably something like, well, at least it exists. That's usually my outlook on it. I just want to make sure that I'm just putting stuff out. I think that I'm always more attracted to filmmakers and writers and just artists in general that have a high volume of output. I think being prolific is really important. You can really chart your own personal growth that way. And I just think I like people that have sort of like daunting bodies of work. I think that it makes it a really fun project to get into, like Steven Soderbergh. I think that filmmakers like Steven Soderbergh are something to be, as opposed to someone like Kubrick, who, while amazing, has a very small body of work compared to a lot of other filmmakers. And while, like, yes, they're all bangers, like, I think that there's a playfulness and there's a freeness and there's a real experimentation where you can kind of indulge in all your fascinations when you're someone like a Soderbergh. I think that that's the way to go. Would you be friends with yourself? I mean, maybe. I feel like, I remember I grew up going to Catholic school, and I remember this nun at one point saying, like, well, it wouldn't be fun if everyone was the same, because then it would just get boring. And so I don't know how much people actually want to be around people like themselves, because I just think that, like, being surrounded by people that have the exact same opinions as you can just, like, it doesn't lead to growth, and it doesn't have the excitingness of the sort of like gentle conflict of a relationship with different people involved. So maybe, I don't know. I feel like on a good day, when I'm just like being combative and contrarian, I feel like maybe that's the version of myself that I would want to be friends with. Because in the very least, like, there would be like a chess game that would go on between the versions of myself. What do you do differently from other people? I think it's just that I do stuff. I'm pretty big about follow through. Like, I don't start something unless I'm adamant that I can get it done and that I want to get it done and that it's something that I would be proud of doing. And I don't abandon projects. I have, but the number's pretty small. I just would rather not pull the trigger if I just don't feel confident in it. So I think, like, just having follow through and making sure that things are like completely finished. It's a real shame to me when a project with a lot of potential gets to sort of like a halfway mark, or like maybe a frustrating 3/4 mark, and you can't figure it out. That's the time in any project where I get the most excited, because it means it's almost done. Like, there's this wall when you're editing a movie or editing a book that you're like, does this work? Does any of this work? Am I just fucking bad at this? Like, what am I doing here? And once you can kind of break through that wall and you can feel it connect and you can feel everything kind of click and start working, like, that's the satisfying thing. But I think a lot of people get caught up in that sort of birth canal where, you know, you could not see it working and all the pieces are there and it just, something doesn't feel right. And I think a lot of people can kind of give up around that time. So yeah, I mean, I think it's important to finish all the things you do, even if you know it's going to be bad. I think that all the lessons you can learn from completing something that's even mediocre or bad, or even outright bad, I think those lessons can add up to a lot in the future, especially if you follow it through and you figure out exactly why it's not working. What would you like your epitaph to say? I think I'd want it to say, all dressed up and nowhere to go.